good one. Get in here. Whoo! I want to show you guys something you can do whether you're in a boat or on the bank. In June and July, that will catch them. I mean, catch them. Stay tuned. Now, what I do in June and July is a shallow water technique. It's something that if I need to catch a lot of fish, and even good size ones, 3, 4, 5 pounders, sometimes even bigger ones than that. I caught a giant one doing this last year. It's something that I focus on in June and July, and that is fishing bluegill beds. And what I want to do is talk about all the techniques and my favorite rigs and my favorite baits to be able to use doing that, how to find bluegill beds, and what you do to be able to catch every fish that is hovering around a bluegill bed. Let's start out talking about the bluegill spawn. Bluegill spawn in water temperatures from 68 to 75 degrees, sometimes 80 degrees, depending on the part of the country you're in. They look for hard bottom, similar to bass, but they like to be out on flats or up shallow on shallow flats up against the bank. There's actually several right along the bank out here in front of me that are super shallow, and if you were bank fishing, be able to get to them. You look for these areas of cleared out bottom, but you're looking for these little saucer-sized or these little round beds that look almost like honeycomb. They're fairly close together, and you'll see little bitty bluegill swimming around and everything else. Well, what this does is it creates a feeding, basically a dinner table for bass is what it is. The bluegill come in to spawn, and they set the dinner table, and the bass come in and they eat. And they eat the bluegill, and they eat the eggs, and they're there. And they love to satellite around the bluegill beds, whether there's cover or not, whether there's grass or no grass and stuff like that. Right now I'm on Guntersville, and Guntersville's a ton of grass, so I'm looking for these bare spots in these grass flats. But these bass will satellite around, and they are there to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to feed. And that's why they're so easy to catch when they're doing this. Now, the ideal conditions or times of the day to do this is early in the morning until the sun gets good up on the water, and late in the evening. But I catch them all day long, even when the sun's up. But you'll catch the biggest ones in low light conditions, or like today, we got a little bit of breeze, and it'll keep the larger bass up for a longer period of time. But all day long, literally, you'll catch them all day long. So don't just say, oh, it's morning and this is the only time I can do it, or this is evening, this is the only time I'll catch fish. You can catch them all day long on bluegill beds. Now, on certain lakes, so like a lake that's a highland reservoir, and it's got a lot of deep pockets, and it's got stuff like that, it's hard to find flats. So what I do is I do a technique that's called smell-o-fishing, okay? And I call it smell-o-fishing anyway. I go into pockets. When I'm in a boat, I'll go into pockets, and I'll smell for what smells like dead fish or dying fish. And what that smell is the smell of bluegill spawning. And if I smell that, then I go looking for bluegill beds. Typically in the back of the pocket, up in that shallowest of area, or right along the bank where seawalls are, or things like that. You'll find them all along there. But I guarantee there's a school of bass in that pocket if the bluegill are in there. If you don't smell them, get out and go to the next pocket and just keep going. That's one of the things I do, especially on like Lake Lanier, and like I said, these lakes that are highland reservoirs. Now on Guntersville and on lakes that are shallow or have a lot of shallow cover, I just look for these bare spots that are in the middle of nowhere. I'll go along the bank and I'll look for, there's grass, and all of a sudden it's a bare spot. Guaranteed that's a bluegill bed. And then another one. And these bluegill beds will be, 10, 15, 20, even like there's one in front of me right now. I bet it's 100 feet long. It just all depends. I know in Louisiana, I've seen them 200, 300 feet long and just covered with bluegill and big bass. All right, so let's talk about the baits. Really, the bait selection is wide open. It's really not something you need to really focus a lot on, except you want, of course, bluegill imitators. I choose my baits depending on the cover. I want to be able to fish that area without getting hung up, or without, something that's going to be the most efficient, what's going to get the most bites, and of course, and that kind of stuff. So let's go through some of the baits that I would choose. So like right now, I'm in a grass lake, a lot of thick cover around these bluegill beds. And so I'm not going to throw a square bow crankbait. I'm not going to throw anything with an open hook. I'm going to be really, really picky about what I throw in there. So some of the baits, and all these baits are going to be listed, and the rods and reels are going to be listed down in the description if you guys want to go look at them on Tackle Warehouse or wherever you can get them, Cast King and stuff like that. The link will be down there. So number one is going to be some type of a swim jig. This is a 6-cent swim jig. I've got, you know, I'll throw something like a, well, looks like I got another. Can't remember what this one is. I'll have to look this one up. But this is one I throw down in Florida a lot, and it's a really good bluegill imitator. But you're looking for bluegill colors for swim jigs. I throw a wacky rig like this one right here, and I've got a weedless hook on it. And of course, this has got the monofilament weed guard, so I always have to bend it out a little bit. But a wacky rig. Be it the original wacky rig, which a lot of you guys don't know about. I might make a video about it. So the original wacky rig is a hook put through the middle of a trick worm, a zoom trick worm. That's always been one of my favorites before the Senko even came out, where you could just jerk it through there and you're going to fish it fairly fast. But a Senko, I got the tail dipped in JJ's Magic. It's green pumpkin with a chartreuse tail, and bluegill have chartreuse tails. I know a lot of people don't notice that until you really look at them in the water, but I dipped the tail of it in chartreuse JJ's Magic, and I'm typically going to fish it on some heavier line. We'll talk about that in a minute. So a wacky rig, a swim jig, fluke. So most of the time I'm throwing a white fluke, but when I'm doing it this time of year, when I'm doing bluegill beds, same thing. I dip the tail of it in JJ's Magic, but it is a green pumpkin. Boy, that one's all conked out. It is a green pumpkin super fluke with the tail dipped in JJ's Magic, fished weightless, and just thrown and jerked really fast over top of these bluegill beds. Say I'm fishing a bluegill bed that is a hard bottom, but there's no grass, there's nothing to get in the way and stuff like that. My favorite technique is you get a spinning rod and you get a Ned rig, a Z-Man Ned rig, and put a TRD on it in a bluegill color, green pumpkin, or the deal is one of my favorite colors and stuff like that. Don't dip it in JJ's Magic because the Elastec dissolves in JJ's Magic. But anyway, throw it out, let it sink to the bottom, and sit down. This is one of those techniques is if you're standing up, you're going to fish it too fast. Sit down, put your, let me try to imitate it using this spinning rod. Put your elbows on your knees. So let it sink all the way to the bottom. Put your elbows on your knees, okay? Just like this, and just relax. And then you're just going to reel it this slow. See how slow this thing is reeling? Let me make sure, I can't see my screen, so let me make sure you guys see it. Okay, you're going to reel it literally this slow. And what you're doing, you're not going to stop unless it gets hung up, of course. But what you're doing is that Ned rig, the shape of that head is bumping every little bump and rock and everything that's in that bluegill bed and the edges of those bluegill beds. And when it bumps it, it kicks up in the air. And if the bite is tough, if you know there's bass in that area but you can't get them to bite, do this and just slowly, slowly reel it through the bluegill beds. Now you will get bit by bluegill, no matter which way you're fishing. You've got to figure out in your head what a bluegill bite feels like and what a bass bite feels like. So a bluegill bite typically is a tump, 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 tump. You feel them bite it, and it feels like somebody's got a jackhammer on the end of your line, just and so you don't want to set the hook with that. Just let them take it, and they'll drop it and stuff like that. And then a bass is just a pump, and it starts to swim off, and you set the hook. So that's a key thing. Key thing is to understand the difference between those. See, like that's a bluegill bite. It's going pump, 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 and then I'm reeling it. Of course, it's a Senko, but they'll grab the end of your worm, and if you jerk it, you're going to give them your worm. They're going to take that worm right away from you, and you're not going to catch a bass. So another great one to fish when you're in heavy cover is some type of a swimming worm, be it like a Zoom speed worm or a Yamamoto. What do they call them? Swimming Senko and stuff like that. But this right here, this is a Strike King Rage cutter worm. My mind went totally blank. And same thing, green pumpkin. I dipped the tail in a little bit of chartreuse, right, just like that. And I mean, you got thick cover that comes through. Now, oh, one thing I forgot to talk about, it's a Texas rig with a very, very light weight. I think this is a 3/16 ounce weight or a 1/4 ounce weight. lightweight, pegged. You throw it out and you can drag it through that grass and drag it through the heavy cover. Straight shank hook. This is a owner straight shank hook. I hate to pull it out, but I'm going to anyway just to show you guys. See that? That's an owner straight shank hook with a keeper. And I've steered, over the years, I've steered further and further away from offset worm hooks, especially in the grass and that kind of stuff, because they just get hung up a whole lot more than a straight shank hook. And the way you fish this one is just, you can swim it through there, so you can throw it out there, you let it sit on the bottom, get down to the bottom. You can slowly swim it and pop it through the little clumps of grass that are in the area. It'll come around that, you know, when the bass are satelliting, you throw along the edge of it, it'll come through the grass and through that heavy cover. Or you can just fish it like you normally would fish a Texas rig, is hop it and drag it, hop it and drag it. Another reason I would throw this is if I had a lot of wind in my face and that kind of stuff, I want to throw something that's got a little bit more weight. Another good technique is topwater, a popper, a devil's horse that's got the props, you know, prop bait. I'll put one on there. I can't remember the name of it, but there's one that I use all the time. It's like a Brian's Bees or a balsa bait. It's a balsa bait, and I'll put a couple of those down in the description for you guys to go look at. Those are dynamite. Oh, there's a bite. Got him. But those balsa bees are really, really good for this. This is a big, good fish. He's about the same as the last one. Got a little bit heavier line. I don't have to net this one. But those topwater baits are great for doing this, that kind of stuff. And like I said, it's just wide open with the baits. I cannot overemphasize the importance of having a chartreuse tail if you're throwing something that's green pumpkin plastic and stuff like that. It just gets their attention and you tend to get more bites. And to me, over 20 years of fishing it, JJ's Magic is the best. Always has been. Another key is approaching the bluegill bed. You don't want to bust right in there and start fishing. You want to sneak up on it, even in a kayak, as quiet and stealthy as it is, or even on the bank. If you're on the bank, you don't want to wear bright clothes. You don't want to have a red hat on, that kind of stuff, because the bass are super shallow and they can see you. So you want to sneak up on it and start on the outside edges of the bluegill bed. Throw into the cover. Last year, I caught a 7.5, 8 pounder. I saw a bluegill bed, but I looked off to the side and there was this one stump. That was the only thing around the outside edge of that bluegill bed. And I threw to it first with a chatterbait. Ran the chatterbait right past that stump, and that giant fish hit it. Always pay attention to what is around the outside edge first and work those outside edges and then go down through the middle. But if you go through the middle, you can almost guarantee you're going to get bluegill bites, one after the other after the other. But then all of a sudden you'll get to the edge of the bluegill bed closest to you, and you'll feel a bass bite. So be careful how you approach it. Another key thing is sunglasses. You got to have a good pair of polarized sunglasses. I didn't say expensive pair, a good pair. This is a very inexpensive pair. It's from Cast King. I'll leave that link to that down in the description as well. But I love these sunglasses. They're very, very good at being able to knock that glare off the water. You don't need an expensive pair of polarized glasses to be able to make this work. Whoa, son. Telling you guys, if you spend your summers focusing on bluegill beds, let me show you some of the things that you can catch out of it. You will catch a ton of fish, and you'll catch little fish, and you'll catch big fish, and you will have the time of your life. And I hope this one doesn't get me hung up in the grass. Oh yeah. Gotta muscle him in a little bit. Yes. Whew, but like I always say, well, first of all, be sure to subscribe. But like I always say, be sure to introduce somebody to fishing. Introduce them to my channel. Let me help you teach them how to fish. More importantly, get out on the water, go out and catch some fish, and have a great day. We'll see you.